You ask, what is our policy? I say it is to wage war by sea, land, and air with all our might. We shall never surrender!
You know, World War II was a horrible time for the entire world. I mean, there's so many different stories, so many different perspectives that happened decades and decades ago. And this one is one that I really did appreciate it within the darkest hour. So what did I think about it? Well, let's get into it. My name is Brandon Keith Avery, and this is just my opinion. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to my opinion/review for Darkest Hour. I really do appreciate it. But before we get into the review, help your boy out by clicking that subscribe button. Also click the little bell so you can be notified when I make uploads, and also give me that thumbs up. Let's see if we can get this video to 100 likes. Now, this movie, The Darkest Hour, is about World War II, and mostly from the perspective of Winston Churchill. If you don't know who Winston Churchill is, he was a very important figure in World War II in the British Kingdom. He was the British Prime Minister that led Britain out, through the Civil War during some trying times. This movie takes place at the very beginning of Winston Churchill's time, where he becomes the prime minister, which was, I think, May of 1940, and takes the place over a month, like his first days of the prime minister until like the first month. He was the prime minister from 1940 to 1945, then again in 1951 to 1955. And Winston Churchill is most known for kind of being a rude, cruel guy, but also never giving up, or never folding, in trying times or whatever. He will always fight to the end. And, this movie did, delve into that. The movie is being directed by Joe Wright. Especially the reason why I'm bringing up his name. I try to bring up directors often, but Joe Wright did The Soloist with Robert Downey Jr. and Jamie Foxx in 2009. He also did Hannah in 2011. I think that movie had Eric Bana in it. That was about that little girl that was like a teenage assassin. And also Pan, which came out in 2015, and that movie was just straight trash or whatever. But now in 2017, he is doing The Darkest, or not The Darkest Hour, but The Darkest Hour. And I'll bring up why I really, brought up those movies later on in the review. This movie comes in at 2 hours and 5 minutes. I was looking forward to it because of Gary Oldman's performance. I think he's a great actor. He was nominated for an Academy Award, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, in 2012. I saw that movie in theaters and I was confused. I was bored out of my mind. He never won, but he was nominated. And that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to see this movie. Just because I also wanted a different perspective from Winston Churchill. I always try to get so many perspectives in World War films, especially World War II. But most notably because of Gary Oldman, that it was nominated for an Academy Award. And I also know him as Lieutenant Gordon from the Dark Knight trilogy that Christopher Nolan did back in 2005, 2008, and 2012. But I said the movie comes in at 2 hours and 5 minutes for a reason. And that is because, to be honest with you guys, the first 40 minutes of this movie, I was bored out of my freaking mind. I was just like, oh my gosh, when is this thing going to be over or whatever? And the reason why I know at 40 minutes is, why it was boring the first 40 minutes, because I paid attention to what time it starts. And at the 40-minute mark, that's where things got good to me. But I was initially, before that, I was so annoyed with Winston Churchill being played by Gary Oldman. I was just like, oh my gosh. And also, just real quick, this is the second film this year that has to do with Winston Churchill. There was a movie that came out in June called Churchill that I did not see. So this is the second movie this year that has to do, with his life or his perspective as the prime minister or whatever. But the first 40 minutes, I was just bored out of my mind, and I was so annoyed with Winston Churchill because I'm just like, this dude has a thick accent. You can barely understand what he is saying. The colors in this movie, the cinematography was just all bland. I wasn't attaching myself. And Winston Churchill just was a jerk. He was just rude to everybody. He was rude. He was cruel. He was extremely dismissive. He didn't care what he said. He didn't have a filter. But at the same time, eventually that's what I began to like about the movie and his character, because there were other characters in this movie that was talking about his character, his personality, and his charisma, and they were saying those exact same things that I was not liking about his character. So this is based on a true story. This is a true guy. I can't judge the movie based on if I don't like his personality. I have to judge it based on, how accurate it is to real life. And through the dialogue in that movie, it seemed like, the director, Joe Wright, hit the nail on the head as far as portraying this character correctly. Also, on a fun note is, Gary Oldman spent about 200 hours repeatedly, like not each day, of course, but over 200 hours over a short period of time trying to put on makeup to where, trying to fatten his body and use prosthetics. And all the prosthetics on his body was like the same weight as he was. So if he was a 150-pound man, the prosthetics weighed like another 150 pounds. So him able to do that and give such a great performance, that just goes to show how great he is. And so, I'll touch on that in just a moment. I kind of want to say what I was about to say towards the end, but, I just love that dedication when, people are throwing themselves into the role. But the movie itself was decent, but the main reason I would recommend this movie if you want to go see it because of Gary Oldman's performance. It was freaking fantastic. It is one of the best performances that I've seen all year. Seriously, if they gave him the Academy Award for the Best Actor in this movie, I would have no quarrels with that. I would have no problems because he did a great job. Also, that has to do with World War II. There was another movie by Christopher Nolan that came out called Dunkirk earlier this year in July. I really did enjoy that movie. And this movie, of course, World War II had to do with, multiple years and, multiple battles and, and all that good stuff. Well, not good stuff, but all that stuff. But this is kind of, to me, like another Dunkirk movie, but just from Winston Churchill's perspective, because that was the forefront of this movie. And seeing Winston Churchill in the war room trying to, talk to all his generals and whatnot on the deliberation and, just how they was going to solve the problems that he had the whole country, the whole Western Europe had to go through because they didn't want to be invaded by, Hitler and Nazi Germany. Those are the best points in this movie or whatever. So I'm just saying this to say that because I saw the movie Dunkirk earlier this year, I was able just to understand more and have a more appreciation for this film. I'm not saying that you have to see Dunkirk to enjoy this movie. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying, me personally, I would just, some of the dialogue they was using, I was like, okay, I remember them talking about that same exact thing in Dunkirk or whatever. So I just liked the movie a little bit more because of that, when they were in the war rooms and things like that. But the way that Joe Wright portrayed Winston Churchill in this movie was great. Like I said, it was boring the first 40 minutes, but once he actually became the prime minister and actually started getting into the nitty gritty and trying to solve the problems of saving his people and where they need to send troops and ships, and how he had a lot of pride and he had a lot of attitude, but they would show him sometimes in a dark room to where he was vulnerable and asking like the United States for help and things like that. Well, like, okay, how about if I do this, can you do this? And I was loving all that. I was eating it up. I love the perspective that this movie was giving us from other people besides Winston Churchill, and how they were taking his behavior as well, and how that was affecting them and their lives and things like that. I was loving all that. It was great. It really did shine a light on Winston Churchill or whatever. I like that I didn't learn it. Well, I learned about him in school, but just a different perspective. I don't know about everybody likes learning, but I like learning and learning more from things that I already know. But the movie, it was pretty good, after that first 40 minutes. And I really did enjoy the performance. Like, it was just one scene to where, like, it was people in, that was supposed to be behind him that was kind of like plotting against him or whatever. And, just had their own agenda. And there was just one scene to where he just like went off on some people in the war room with a chair. That was like, do you hold yourself responsible? He's like, hell yeah, I'm responsible. He like shaking the chair, and I'm like, oh shit, like, excuse me. But I was just like, dang, this guy is good. This guy he is on the way. You're going to the top. That was kind of a joke right there. If you know that reference, put it in the comment section below. But his performance was just like, whoa, okay. It was great. It was fantastic. It was the best thing out of this movie. So even if you don't enjoy the movie so much, you will enjoy it for his performance. And because of that, I would recommend it. If I had to rate the entire movie out of a 1 out of 10, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. Yes, an 8.5 out of 10. But guys, that is just my opinion. Have you seen Darkest Hour, or do you want to see it? Have I turned you on? Have I turned you off? Do you agree with me, or do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comment section below. Let's get this conversation going and keep it flowing. If you like this video, go ahead and give me the thumbs up. If you don't, that's fine. Also, subscribe to my channel. Go to my website, check me out there. Look me up on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All that good stuff is at the bottom of the screen, and there's a link to all that stuff down in the description box below. And share the video, guys. It would really help me a lot, and I would appreciate it. But and I was going to talk about Joe Wright. Something that I've noticed in all of Joe Wright's movies, in Soloist, Hannah, Pan, and this movie, The Darkest Hour, each of those movies had a big chunk of it where I was bored out of my mind. And that's just something that I had to mention, but it ended up being pretty good. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in to my opinion/review for The Darkest Hour, starring Gary Oldman, directed by Joe Wright. And before you go, don't forget that my name is Brandon Keith Avery, and that's just my opinion. Peace.